Hey there, Alex Rabix Gaming coming to you with a new video for Death Stranding 2 just to share my thoughts on the brutal difficulty after more than 130 hours in the game, reaching maximum connection level with every prepper and almost done with my platinum. I'm gonna try to keep this video short by focusing on the key aspects of the game, deliveries and combat against BTs, humans and mechs. This so you can have a better understanding with a 360-degree overview of what you can expect once you start playing on the maximum difficulty. And I'll try to keep spoilers for important story bits down to the minimum, but TLDR for those who don't want to waste too much time, if you completed Death Stranding 1, you should be able to ace all deliveries while facing some challenge in combat in Death Stranding 2. Now let's start with the deliveries. I've always felt like Death Stranding 1 was just a relaxing game, and I'm reaffirming this with the sequel, because no matter what type of delivery I was entrusted, almost all of them were extremely easy to overcome. Since you can go for Legend of Legends early in the game, I tried to do as many as possible as I could, while being efficient on ranking up with each prepper, and the only ones that I didn't ace were some orders that involve heavy combat and penalize you for the damage received. If there's no combat involved, as long as you stick to my pro tips video from a few years ago, you'll be able to get the maximum rank without any problem. Stick to using vehicles, floating carriers, ziplines, and avoiding unnecessary fights, and any order in DS2 will be easy peasy. I think the evolution of the challenge from DS1 to DS2 leaves a lot to be desired. Especially as I try to remember some of the missions from the original game where you had to carry a ticking bomb across the mountain or transporting Mama to her sister while facing multiple enemy camps. That's when I realized just how difficult some of those were. Perhaps the only two categories of deliveries that made me try to be a little bit more conscious of what I was doing and how to handle my driving and cargo were those that involved fragile and explosive deliveries. And I'm looking at you, Mr. Impossible, because those sucked big time. And I cannot tell you how many times my vehicle exploded out of nowhere, ruining my cargo and forcing me to reload a previous save, or the numerous WTF moments after my cargo was damaged by some dumb mistake like getting off the Magellan, going a little bit too fast in the dunes, or bumping into a rock that I didn't see while driving during the night. My lesson was to just be careful and remember that I was dealing with delicate stuff, but once I locked into that mentality, the problem was solved. Let's talk about combat, because this is where I think the real challenge lies in brutal mode, depending obviously on what gear you have unlocked when you face certain challenges, because not all foes are made the same. So let's start with the good old BTs. BTs in this game are absolutely awful and are very easy to deal with, as your arsenal has been greatly expanded and basically you have a lot more firepower to go against any of them whenever you actually have to face them, because many of those encounters are exclusive to some story chapters or sub-orders, and usually the game unlocks some items for you before you go ahead into these missions. Again, if you're coming from DS1, you'll know what to do against most of these BTs, so no surprises there. Perhaps the real challenge in brutal difficulty regarding BTs is to try to capture those BTs and then use them against other BTs further down the road. This new mechanic of capturing BTs is really interesting because Kojima is making you play Pokemon inside Death Stranding 2. Like any Pokemon game, you need to reduce the health bar of the BT just enough so you can weaken the beast and then use your Pokeball or your BT capture device to smack them in the mouth and add them to your collection. Some of them are tough to catch, like the hand, the lion, the flying manta ray, or even the big boy. Trying to capture each of them is a real challenge, even with multiple EX capture grenades on hand, and I would have loved to see one trophy specifically for capturing all of the BTs, because I thought that was a moment where I really struggled with the most of these creatures. But besides that, once you've captured one BT, you can use it in any BT fight, and you'll be just watching a kaiju movie and won't even bother to turn any brain cells on anymore. Moving on with combat against humans, I think I would rank them number 2 in terms of difficulty in brutal mode. It seems, or at least that's my perception, that whenever you're trying to enter an enemy camp, all of the enemies have mutant level senses and will detect you very easily. On top of that, there are no stormtroopers and they have decent aim, and even when they are not that smart in terms of trying to flank you and overwhelm you to the point that you faint or die, they can put your back against the wall in more than one occasion, during some of the story missions where you face a mysterious snake-like character. If you're trying to take a stealthy approach, the difficulty really shines, but if you go all guns blazing, you'll eventually succeed depending on the arsenal that you're carrying. I had a really hard time going against some of these massive enemy camps to recover lost cargo, and those were the moments where I really felt the brutal difficulty was worth it. Just be careful not to use any lethal weapons or you'll have to clean up your mess to avoid a BT void out. Finally, let's move on with the mechs, and let me tell you, these communist bots are no joke. I know I'm a bad player, that's why I don't mess against other humans in fighting games or shooters or whatever. I stick to fighting the good old mobs. But these guys made me retry a lot of the encounters more than I would like to admit, especially those mechs with blades. They are extremely fast and take advantage of the awful new dodge mechanic where you have to actually be aiming at the enemy to perform a dodge. Kojima, my boy, what were you thinking? There were several encounters throughout the story against these mechs that put me on the edge and made me regret playing on brutal, specifically some boss fights or near the end story missions where I hadn't planned accordingly and I didn't bring too much weapons with me and I had to rely on what was around me. But once you unlock some of the heavy guns like the quad launcher or the fantastic ball stun gun, these bots turn quickly to a pile of scrap. And if you take down one of the big boys quickly, you can use the heavy machine gun and melt everything else. Low-key made me feel like a Terminator. 10 out of 10, mechs are the best and the worst challenge in brutal difficulty. Overall, I think the brutal difficulty in Death Stranding 2 is not as brutal as it seems, especially if you compare it with Death Stranding 1. There, the struggle was real. Perhaps this is because everything was new back then and we were learning the mechanics along the way, but for DS2 especially, and if you're a returning player with dozens of hours of experience, you'll be just fine. Combat is the place where you might struggle the most, but I think that's where the fun lies with the sequel. So, as long as you grind a little bit and unlock the correct weapons to face those challenges, you will be fine and enjoy the game as I think Kojima originally intended. But that was my experience. I would like to know what was yours, so please share in the comment section down below what you guys think about your first playthrough of the game, and on what difficulty did you do it. Give it a thumbs up if you agree, thumbs down if you don't. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later for another Death Stranding 2 video.